Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. This is Roust, and he is the most garbage healer to ever exist. One day, his party was getting wrecked by an 8-headed dragon. Their gold-covered leader Margulis blamed Roust because his best healing spell was Intense Optimism. The human trophy decided to run for his life, and later he kicked the useless healer from the party. Roust blamed them for staying up all night wrestling in baby oil at a Diddy party, but Margulis put it to a vote, and even the little mage girl said that Roust was useless trash. This is why everyone looks like they just saw a car crash when a girl named Naru asks Roust to join her party. Everyone begs her not to throw her life away by teaming up with him because she will end up broke like most anime recap viewers. However, Naru isn't worried about cash because she's been selling her bathwater to lonely guys on the internet. Besides being a self-made entrepreneur with no need for money, Naru has a secret reason for trying to party with Roust. Roust agrees to team up with her, and Naru shows some real stalker vibes as she stares at our boy. Roust is told not to take Naru to the dungeon because she's a newbie, but Roust is an alpha male and doesn't listen to anyone. The genius detective Naru points out that Roust is pretty confident for a guy that can't even heal a paper cut, but Roust acts like he's hearing impaired and keeps it moving. With enough confidence to slap a dragon in the face, Naru marches into the dungeon and instantly wipes out a group of goblins. This only adds to her overinflated ego, but she's quickly humbled when Roust must rescue her from being introduced to all the spikes in a spike trap. Their next challenge is a goblin that looks like it bench presses rocks for a living, but the confident Naru attacks it, like she doesn't know that it could punt her across the room. It of course doesn't go well, but Roust shows the first glimpse of his hidden strength when he rescues her. Once again, Naru's detective-level brain cells are hard at work, and she wonders if Roust is really just a healer, but he easily manages to change the subject again. Roust wants to heal her wounds, but Naru's worried that he might mess up and transform her into a potato. Roust uses all his power to heal her tiny little scrape, and they amaze a guild clerk with how many stones they ripped out of monsters. The clerk named Amherst encourages the pair to keep stomping on monsters because she's a greedy little hustler, and she gets a cut of the cash whenever they sell stones to the guild. Later, we learn Naru's secret. Years ago, she was healed by Roust after her group was attacked by monsters. Instead of being upset about everyone around her being ravaged by beasts, Naru was super happy, and she promised to grow up so she could protect Roust one day. Naru is now upset because Roust is too dumb to recognize her because she has blue hair now, but for some inexplicable reason, she decides not to just come out and tell him. Instead, she will just keep protecting him. Unfortunately, her plan immediately fails during their next trip, when she learns a basic fact that even children know: physical attacks don't work against ghosts. Now a party of two highly questionable adventurers, they work together to defeat the Lynch. Roust uses his trusty Pokeball to heal Naru's wounds, and they feed the treasure-hungry clerk, who's a fiend for the shiny stones. Elsewhere, Roust's old party has made an upgrade in the looks department with a new healer, but they are shocked when she refuses to fight on the front lines. They explain that Roust did this with no problem, but instead of realizing that Roust might be really powerful because he was the one that managed to cut off one of the dragon's heads off last time, the dumb walking trophy case decides that they can win without Roust. It turns out that they couldn't, and only now, after taking a beating, worse than the one your bank account took after you bought a 50-cent candy bar, does Margulis realize that Roust was a valuable member of their team. Margulis then begs Roust, like you beg God for a girlfriend, to come back to the team. He even tries to say that calling Roust a useless sack of potatoes before was just a misunderstanding. Naru quickly puts a stop to the gaslighting, but the gold-plated adventurer accuses her of manipulating Roust with her fake nails and BBL. This proves to be a big mistake for the urine-colored knight, as Roust drops the nice guy act, and he threatens to snap Margulis in half if he ever talks about Naru's BBL ever again. Margulis angrily searches for a new party member, and the Phantom of the Opera steps forward. His name is Sieg, and he instantly proves how strong he is, so the cowardly power leader has him join the team. Margulis is feeling some post-fight clarity, but we see that the rest of his team has gone behind his cowardly back to beg Roust for help. The delusional Margulis wants them to fight the dragon again, but the girls want help from the only guy that actually dealt damage to the beast. The crazy little mage goes through a roller coaster of emotions and apologizes for voting to kick Roust out of the party. Roust feels some true compassion as he watches her sob, but he still rejects the little backstabber. Martha Stewart breaks up the tension with some food to fatten up the skinny little magic girl, and Lyra pulls Roust aside to try and convince him some more. She says that they can't leave Margulis because he has embarrassing pictures of them from the last guild party, so Rouse begins to wonder if he should help. Later, Naru tears through some orcs the same way you tear through a bag of Cheetos at 3 AM. Our blue-haired bombshell of a heroine demonstrates exactly why she's the perfect partner by single-handedly dispatching the entire group of monsters with ease. Rouse is impressed, but Naru's already eager for the next challenge. Unfortunately, Naru lost her Ozempic prescription, and she's hungry, so the next challenge ends up being lunch. The two find the perfect spot on the dirty dungeon floor, but instead of bringing some packed sandwiches, Naru surprises Roust with a huge feast. It turns out that Betty Crocker forced them to take the leftovers from earlier, but somehow Roust didn't notice Naru bringing the giant box of food. As they stuff their face holes, Roust explains what kind of monster his old teammates are up against. The Hydra is a truly terrible foe with more muscles than a JoJo protagonist and a body covered in scales, strong enough to deflect both physical and magical attacks. As if being indestructible wasn't enough, it's also filled with protagonist-killing poison. These dragons are somewhat rare, but among other monsters of its caliber, it's the most common. Thanks to this, the Hydra has been studied extensively by past adventurers, and they have come up with a number of methods in order to deal with it. Its poison will have anyone spraying blood from both ends, like they just ate a Taco Bell taco filled with broken glass, but luckily there's an antidote available for purchase. It's rather expensive, however, which is why Roust's old broke-ass team didn't have one before. Roust explains that his old team will have to rely entirely on the new healer's detoxifying magic. Naru can't help but feel a little nervous hearing all this, but Roust soothes her fears when he describes the kind of people in his old team. Its leader Margulis may look like the free hero you get in mobile games, but he's actually a really exceptional swordsman. As long as he doesn't run for his life and doesn't underestimate his opponent, Margulis can be quite formidable. Siberia is also no slouch with her top-notch speed and agility. Her talent for stealth could be enough to sneak up on any monster, even one with as many heads and eyes as the animators decided to slap on to this thing called a Hydra. Naru doesn't like hearing Roust speak so highly of his old squad because they dropped him, the same way you guys drop an anime after the first filler episode. However, Roust says that the only language he knows is the truth, so Naru keeps her opinions to herself for now. Instead, she mentions how tired she's getting challenging the same dungeon day after day. Roust agrees that it might be time to move on, and Naru excitedly brings up the wetlands that are not too far away. Meanwhile, in the wetlands not too far away, we join Lightning Sword. They're in the middle of fierce combat with the Hydra that looks like it was solely created to remind side characters that they're not main characters. Margulis manages to land a cutting blow against one of the many heads, and their latest member Sieg follows it up with a slash of his own that nearly decapitates the beast. Pressing his advantage, the masked swordsman readies another assault, but as his blade reaches the beast, he pulls back and retreats. Margulis angrily calls him out for not finishing the job, but Sieg counters by asking if Margulis would really be alright with him taking all the glory for himself. He believes that Margulis the Trophy Man deserves this trophy for himself. After all, Margulis the Hydra Slayer does have a better ring to it than all his other stupid nicknames. Eager for me to stop making fun of him, Margulis charges headlong at the monster, but he's quickly sent packing after his foolhardy attack. Lyra's busy treating their rogue, but she can't believe that their brain-rotted leader is charging straight at the monster. He has no chance because the dragon's basically a walking tank with more blackheads than Siberia's back. Lyra continues to complain, but Siberia says that's just who he is. She likes bad boys, and she finds his stupidity rather charming. With her injuries healed and her terrible choice in men, the rogue rushes back to make more poor life choices. Just then, Lyra's attention shifts to Sieg, who seems to be merely observing from a distance, and she wonders what he's planning. The fight has dragged on for a while now, and the Hydra is beginning to slow down. Siberia's distractions allow Margulis to deal considerable damage, and in this world with no child labor laws, Armia is working overtime with her magical assault. With their powers combined, Lyra's confident that the Hydra will soon fall. Her hopes are shattered when the Hydra sends a huge rock into the chest of the little child laborer, who now wishes she was assembling Nikes like the other kids. Amira is terrified to see that the monster has now fixed its gaze on her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream as it draws close, and things take a dark turn as something strange begins to happen. A dark smoke-like substance begins emanating from her body that no one can identify until Sieg points out that it's fear. As it turns out, fear is exactly what monsters like the Hydra feed on to grow stronger. What's odd is that fear is not something usually visible to the naked eye like this. The team soon realizes that they have been surrounded by the smoke as it flows in from every direction. Lyra's shocked to realize that what they are seeing is mana, something only found in the deepest parts of the labyrinth. Mana, fear, whatever this mist is, the Hydra absorbs it hungrily, and it begins to change. With enough magical power, monsters are capable of mutating, something that can often increase their abilities and turn them into even more terrifying opponents. Unfortunately, instead of transforming into something truly creative, the low-budget anime studio just changed its color and threw on some more heads. Still, the beast is several times more powerful than it was before, and Lyra never imagined that she would see a transformation happen in real life. There is no way for a lightning sword to beat this new and improved monster, so Sieg tells Lyra to take care of the mage, and Margulis that it's time to retreat. Margulis, the legendary Hydra Slayer, does not retreat however. He charges forth once more, intent on taking at least one head as his prize, but as his blade makes contact with the Hydra scales, it cracks and snaps in two, completely failing him, like the cheap gaming mouse you bought fails you right in the middle of a match. Left defenseless, Margulis nearly finds a new home at the back of the Hydra's throat, but Roust appears to save him just in time. Margulis is shocked to see his old teammate, but there isn't much time to talk. With Naru's help, the two manage to drive back the Hydra, but Roust is needed somewhere else. Sieg points out that Roust is a mere healer and sends him off to go treat Armia while he holds the beast back. Lyra has used up all her side character points, so she can no longer help their fallen mage. Luckily, Roust arrives with plenty of his plot armor tokens, so he uses his humble heal ability on Armia. Lyra exclaims that the basic heal spell won't nearly be enough, but she is stunned to see him use another, and then another heal on top of that. Lyra is confused and wonders if Roust is glitching out as he says heal a bunch of times, but Siberia explains that Roust is just doing what he always does, by layering heals. Even the Golden Boy says that this is pretty common for Roust, but to Lyra that makes no sense whatsoever. Putting a band-aid over an injury helps, but putting 10 band-aids on top of the first doesn't make the wound heal any faster. Fortunately, this snobby know-it-all is proven quite wrong when Amira reawakens thanks to Roust. Lyra can only wonder just who Roust really is, and Amira thanks him for keeping her alive so she won't be fired for leaving work early. Nearby, Sieg has done what he can to halt the Hydra, but it appears that the monster has been waiting for Roust. It's as if it remembers him and now wants revenge. Thankfully, Naru and Sieg are there to help as the three ready themselves for the dangerous fight ahead. The rest stand back and decide to watch from the sidelines while the real heroes go to work. The great Hydra Slayer has no complaints either, but only because his sword is broken, not because he's a coward. The intense fight begins as Naru lands a stunning punch and Roust capitalizes on the opening she provides. Meanwhile, Sieg's great sword cleaves a head clean off in a single stroke. Margulis is shocked to see that his blade didn't break, but Lyra explains that it's a magical sword. Margulis is stunned because he has heard of this legendary blade, and it's way better than his pathetic sword that his girlfriend always laughs at. Just then, a costly mistake by Naru sees one of her strikes countered by the Hydra, and she is thrown to the ground. Disturbingly, the monster doesn't attack, but instead seems to take her hostage and dares Roust to fight it one-on-one. Lyra comes in with more epic world building by explaining that monsters don't just get stronger when they mutate into slight variations of themselves, they get smarter too. This monster now has more intelligence in one head than their entire party, and its heart is full of vengeance. Roust is no punk, so he tells everyone to stay back, and he accepts the challenge. Roust dashes forward, but the scene quickly cuts to a disappointed old man. When we return to the fight, we see that Roust has been defeated. Even though the dragon has a million IQ points, it's still not above flexing on noobs, so it taunts Roust with a battle cry. Roust just hopes that the dragon won't start teabagging him, and he reaches out to his loyal teammate before losing consciousness. The others tremble in fear as they're out of options, but Roust's body begins to pulse. Everyone is shocked as our hero finds the strength to rise again, this time burning with a terrible aura. It turns out that the mysterious old man was not disappointed by Roust's weakness. He was disappointed that the power inside Roust that should have remained in eternal slumber has now awakened. Just then, a glowing horn sprouts from Roust's forehead as he's infused with a sudden burst of power. The dragon instantly senses the danger, so it moves in to end the fight quickly, but it's too late. With one fell swoop, Roust destroys the Hydra, cutting it down to size, before he himself collapses unconscious. When our favorite OP healer awakens, he finds a very worried Naru leaning over him. Thankfully, Lyra was there to heal him back to health, but she reminds him that such magic doesn't grow on trees, and she'll be sending him her bill later, and it might hurt more than the Hydra. She asks what all that horny business was earlier, but Roust has no clue what she's talking about. Regardless, Roust's old teammates change their attitudes faster than you change clothes after realizing you haven't showered for a week. Margulis is delighted to realize that his good buddy Roust is so strong, and he's convinced that with him at their side, they could even beat the master of the labyrinth himself. Siberia reminds him that no one has even seen the master, and says that they should slow down a bit. For the time being, they can sell all the magical stones they gathered after defeating the Hydra. Such a haul split between the three of them is enough to make them all quite rich. Roust points out that more than 3 people helped, but that's not how the lightning sword operates. Margulis deems that the 2 newbies on the team hardly did enough to earn a share, and he thinks that Naru is simply Roust's trophy waifu. Margulis then declares that he, the rogue and Roust, can claim the prize for themselves. Even poor Armia isn't included because child labor is cheap anyway. The evil Margulis even goes as far as to suggest that Armia might never wake up, so they might as well just sell her for some extra coin, considering how useless she is as a mage. Naru is quickly fed up with this dark turn of events, so she knocks Margulis off his feet with one solid punch. The fallen trophy case starts whining that guild members are forbidden from fighting each other, and he demands that others testify against Naru. Naturally, the people he just pissed off didn't see a thing, and they have nothing to testify to. Luckily for him, his partner in crime is there to back him up, and she says that she'll let the guild know that they're collaborating to break the law. Sieg has a change of heart and says that he might have seen something after all. However, much to Margulis' chagrin, he reveals that what he saw was someone trying to human traffic a young girl. Lyra agrees some pervert definitely tried to sell an unconscious person off, an evil felony that demands punishment, even in a fictional anime world. Sieg says that he can't let this go, and Margulis is shocked when he hints at what his real identity is. Afterwards, Margulis and Siberia get their just desserts and are tied up, like you are when you're watching anime and your friends want to hang out. Sieg takes off his tiny mask that hides absolutely nothing to reveal his true identity. His real name is Sieg, an absolute shocker by the animators. It turns out that he's an adventurer from the Royal Adventurers Guild, which is a pretty big deal. He explains that as part of the Royal Guild, he is there to police other adventurers and to safeguard the town, a job usually meant for local adventurers who have been lacking as of late. When he first arrived to investigate, he immediately ran into Lightning Sword and has been closely watching them ever since, behind his perfect disguise. Sieg was completely unrecognizable behind the mask, and he witnessed a lot, so it's no surprise that Margulis and Siberia are judged to be unfit for the guild and will be expelled from the association. The 2 are likely to end up serving a lifetime of forced labor, mopping up baby oil after every Diddy party. Their wailing and whining begin, but the 2 are ignored as Roust asks to speak with Sieg in private. Amazingly, he asks that his old teammates be spared for some reason. Roust explains that once, those 2 were good adventurers with dreams and aspirations, but were corrupted by the idea of being the very best. They may crave wealth and social status, but they aren't truly evil, just misguided and lost. Roust's speech works way better than mine does when trying to get out of a speeding ticket, so Sieg agrees and releases the 2 of them. However, he makes sure that they understand that he might always be watching, and they will never know it because he will be wearing his mask again. The lucky pair don't need any more convincing and quickly run off, hopefully right out of this story for good. Sieg explains that even if they had been expelled, they would only go on being their devious selves, trying to human traffic anyone they came across. This way, as adventurers, the guild can keep an eye on them. However, Amherst isn't so sure about that. Keeping tabs on those 2 might have been easy in the capital city, where high-level adventurers hide their identity using sophisticated disguises, but this is just a small town, and they don't have those kinds of resources. Sieg agrees and suggests that he stay a while to make sure that things stay on the level around here. With all that said and done, Naru isn't feeling the best about what just happened. She regrets convincing Roust to help his former teammates, but Roust isn't worried. He may still have feelings for his team, but he feels good about the way things ended and has no regrets. He actually thanks Naru and asks her to keep being his partner, to which she happily accepts. That night, Zeke and Lyra discuss his true mission. As Zeke explains it, he's here to investigate the town in light of all the mutations going on, like the Hydra they just brought down. It turns out that Zeke used another disguise on top of his old one to hide from even the higher-ups. It was a mustache, and it practically wiped his existence off the face of the earth. With the information he gathered, he thinks that the Adventurers Guild is directly responsible for the mutations, and he even suspects that the boss in charge might be behind it all. He asks Lyra to help him and to form a party together like they did in the old days. Lyra, while hesitant, agrees on one condition: Amira the mage has to join the party too. Zeke welcomes a new addition and says that he's going to need all the help he can get, especially now that he has witnessed the kind of monster-like strength Rouse displayed in their fight. Someone like Rouse demands all of their attention. Later, we see that the three failures, Sieg, Lyra, and Armia, have banded together. The young mage seems pretty shaken up after doing so much child labor, so Rouse congratulates her and the others on teaming up. Rouse and Naru then begin the day by heading to the guild hall. The battle with the Hydra has left them quite a few magic stones to exchange for cold hard cash, but Rouse is more interested in taking on their first quest. He explains that there's more to being an adventurer than just fighting monsters. Hunting down important items and defending those who can't defend themselves also constitute the duties and responsibilities of an adventurer. He wants Naru to gain as much experience as she can, and Naru nearly passes out when she realizes just how much he cares about her. At the guild, the pair are met with strange and venomous glares from the others. It seems news has spread of Rouse's victory over the Hydra, and he warns his partner that there might be some dirtbags who want to steal their magical stones. One of these dirtbags, named Marmal, approaches Rouse and asks if he has a moment to talk. When Rouse seems a little hesitant, Marmal tells the rest of his cronies to go kick rocks so they can have a more personal conversation. Rouse determines that this guy doesn't want his precious stones, but is still a surprise when Marmal suddenly bows his head and apologizes on behalf of all the adventurers. Despite knowing what kind of guy Margulis was, they did nothing about it and never bothered trying to help Rouse. To make things worse, they even made fun of his dumb-looking hair and his bland personality. They knew him then as the incompetent Rouse and never gave him a second thought. Naru is ready to shove her foot down this guy's throat, so she tells Marno that bowing isn't enough. If he really wants to apologize, he should polish Rouse's sword and kiss his stones. Marno thinks that's going too far, but this just makes Naru even more furious. It hardly compares to the years and years Rouse had to put up with their disrespect, but it's a good start. Rouse, trying to avoid being cancelled for forcing someone to polish his sword, says that none of that is necessary. The truth is, he's still incompetent when it comes to healing, and not much has changed, and he would actually prefer it if they just kept hurling insults at him. The two shake on it, and it feels like all the tension evaporates from the guild hall, giving our heroes the chance to sell off their sweet loot. Amherst stares at the magical stone they've brought her, and like every woman I've ever shown my Pokemon collection to, she is in awe of how big and weird it is. Rouse suspects its strange shape is a result of the monster's mutation, and Naru is worried it will affect the price. It turns out that she's right. The guild is willing to pay 10 times or more what they normally would for something so valuable and rare. The fact that it mutated at all is of some concern though. Monsters shouldn't be absorbing enough mana to change like that outside of the labyrinth. The other scattered reports of monsters acting strangely only compounds Rouse's suspicion that something is going on, and he asks why the guild doesn't just send someone to investigate. Before Amherst can answer, Mr. Handsome arrives, giving off some real main character vibes despite just being the guy in charge of the guild. He tells the pair to join him in his office, and after going over the reports, mentions that monsters transforming is rare, but not unheard of. Handsome explains that he's too good looking to deal with such trivial matters, and if Rouse is afraid, then maybe it's time for the healer to leave this town once and for all. Naru's more than a little annoyed by Mr. Stick Up His Butt, and Amherst says that's just the kind of guy he is. She then brings up Mr. Mist, the actual president of the guild. A man so old he can hardly leave his own office, and he often stumbles while going upstairs. With Mr. Mist's obvious mental decline, and without having to go through a competitive selection process, Handsome has taken on the president's duties. He has a reputation among the other guild employees as being strict and no nonsense. Rouse isn't into all the workplace gossip, so he has to be shown all the available quests. Naru is appalled by how paltry some of them are, like this one where some guy just wants to go fishing in the underground lake of the labyrinth and needs an escort. Amherst, eager to collect more racks, reminds her that every job with a reward is a job worth doing. Rouse then comes across a mission to defeat a bunch of monsters. Naru jumps at the idea of a worthy mission, but Amherst says that it's a no-go. It turns out that a phoenix is lurking dangerously close to a teleportation circle they would have to go through. The quest would earn them a ton of coin, but a healer and a martial artist trying to fight a phoenix is suicide. They don't have long-range attacks, so in order for them to accept the quest, they would need to have at least a warrior, a mage, and a healer that can actually use area heals. If they're really interested in defeating the beast and claiming the massive reward, the two of them are going to need help. Our two heroes become excited when they realize that they know the three perfect adventurers who recently formed the party. Lyra and Siege are interested in the job, with Lyra having the audacity to whisper about Rouse right in front of him, as if he has lost his hearing. She tells Sieg that this is a good chance to observe the banished healer, since that was his reason for sticking around in the first place. They then ask Armia what she thinks, but the little wizard is too busy wondering why her life choices have led to her joining these losers. Armia decides to just do what they think is best, and says that she's just surprised that Rouse would ever want to team up with her again after she top 10 anime betrayed him. Our hero's quick to forgive and forget, and he holds no ill will towards his old teammate. They have only the future to look forward to now, and that future involves teaming up to kick some Phoenix ass. The gang get to work getting prepared for the next day, from dealing with guild paperwork to rounding up supplies and buying the necessary equipment. Roust and Naru are on their way to grab some potions when she is suddenly hugged from behind by a shirtless stranger. Freaking out a fighter is a good way to get launched across the street, and Naru breaks free and takes a swing, only to realize it's someone she knows. Miss Ralma calls herself a top-notch enchanter and adventurer known as the Fire God, a terrible nickname that she picked for herself. Naru's surprise at seeing an old acquaintance is quickly replaced with suspicion when she asks whether Ralma was sent by her father. Ralma confirms that she was sent by Naru's father, seeing as his favorite child ran off on her own to elope with some random boy. However, what is surprising is that Naru isn't the only one who knows Ralma. When the redhead notices that some boy they were talking about, she is surprised to realize that it's her old useless student, Roust. As it turns out, he trained under her for a short time, but his lack of skill made them part ways. As for Naru, Ralma's an old friend of her father's. With that exciting context out of the way, Ralma asks the healer for a moment alone with Naru. They need to discuss some important family matters, which doesn't involve an outsider like him. Rouse grows a spine out of nowhere, and he refuses to leave. Naru's important to him because they are partners, and he's not some outsider. If Ralma's here to take her back to her father like he suspects, then he isn't going anywhere. Ralma's amused by her former disciple's brazenness, and asks if he thinks he can really stop her. Rouse tells her to just try, so the legendary God of Flames sends out the slowest fireball in anime history from the tip of her fork. Rouse dodges it with ease, and the fire's only victim is someone else's turkey leg. Naru tries to calm things down by explaining that she didn't really run away, so much as she just kind of forgot to tell anyone she was leaving. She did leave a note though, one that simply said that she was leaving to go find her big brother Roust, and she told him not to be worried. For some reason, she thought her father would be completely relieved to hear that his young, impressionable daughter was running off without a word to go chasing a strange man. Ralma demands an explanation for her utterly odd behavior, and Naru hesitates because the truth is a little awkward. Understandably, Naru is too embarrassed to reveal that she had spies watching Rouse for a long time. Eyes and ears that not only reported his whereabouts and actions, but the fact that he had been kicked out of Lightning Blade. Like any good stalker, Naru saw her chance and she took it. Rouse, seeing how uneasy his partner is, tells her that maybe she should go see her dad, especially because in order to be an adventurer, you need your parents' permission. Naru is more than a little hurt and scared to hear him say that, mostly because her father might say no, and the two of them may never see each other again. Ralma clears things up by saying that her father doesn't have a problem with his daughter becoming an adventurer. He was just worried that she would come back with a loser boyfriend. All her father wants to know is if his little girl is safe, and that she isn't dating an anime recap viewer. From what Ralma can tell, Naru is fine, and she tells Naru to leave it to her to convince her father. With that out of the way, the fire god asks her stupid apprentice to get her some wine so the girls can have a private talk about him. As his former teacher, she wonders why Naru's so captivated by such an incompetent man like him, but Naru sticks up for Roust. She defends him by going over his many strengths and skills she witnessed firsthand since partying up with him. He is strong, wise, and thoughtful, but most of all, Roust is a good man, one who puts others before himself, others like Naru, whom he has been doing everything in his power to guide and help gain experience as an adventurer. Though she was the one that came to save him, she has come to realize, like we all have, that she is nothing but a burden, and the thought of it is more than she can handle. Taking this all in, Realma explains that Roust has never sticked up for anyone in his entire life, except for Naru. He has changed because of her, and it seems like it's for the better. Realma suggests the girls stick around with her healer friend for a while longer, and bids the two of them good luck on their journey. As for her, she has her own mission. Mr. Mist, the mysterious president of the guild, has some secrets that the fire god plans to bring to light. With preparations complete and all doubts cast aside, the team of Lyra the healer, Sieg the Saber, Army of the Wizard, and of course our favorite incompetent healer and his fighter companion are assembled and ready. There is some poor phoenix out there that's going to get wrecked. The team teleports into the dungeon to begin their hunt, and Naru's ready to throw hands the moment her feet touch the ground. It's on sight as far as she's concerned, but there's no phoenix waiting for them, not in such a narrow space. Making their way through the tight corridors, the gang is on the hunt. They know their fiery prey will prefer wide open spaces, more suited to such a large flying monster. The search comes to an end when they stumble out into a sprawling cavern. Lined with broken pillars and topped with a high ceiling, Army and Naru are surprised that even deep into the labyrinth, there are such expansive spaces. Lyra recalls that this is likely the area she heard about. There is talk that a new path has been discovered nearby, a piece of the labyrinth that has not yet been explored by adventurers. And as every adventurer knows, at the end of every uncharted trail in the labyrinth is all the unclaimed treasure one could ever want. Lyra's enthusiasm is contagious, and the girls are excited at the thought of riches and glory, but Sieg reminds them that there's one problem. There's a big scary monster guarding the way. No one's managed to get past it yet, so the guild has placed a sizable bounty on its head. Roust's investigation of the area quickly uncovers signs of burning amidst the rubble. He determines that this can only be the work of the Phoenix. To test his idea, he takes a stone and tosses it deeper into the cavern. It's bouncing across the rock echoes throughout the dark expanses. Fiercely territorial, the moment the Phoenix detects an intruder, it will attack, and Roust is counting on it. On cue, the labyrinth lights up with a shining portal on the ceiling. Out flies a burning ball of fire that zips around the room before unveiling its wings and taking flight. The Phoenix has arrived, and this battle's just heating up. Meanwhile, back at the guild hall, Amherst is busy doing nothing when the bikini top warrior comes waltzing through the front door. Desperate as can be, Amherst welcomes the redhead to Marmot's branch of the Adventurers Guild with a cheerful smile. Realma's a little taken aback by how friendly the staff are here to the adventurers. Lying through her teeth, Amherst says that it's only natural for her to be nice to the adventurers. The truth is that the half-naked Realma is the first woman she's seen, not just like a nun or a bank teller around this town. What little she is wearing is clearly made of fine material and even magical quality. Amherst knows expensive when she sees it, so whoever this redhead is, she's certainly worth knowing. Amherst thinks of her as a target to make boatloads of money off of, so she offers to help Realma any way she can. Realma wastes no time and asks to see the branch president. Amherst is a bit concerned, so she asks if Realma has an appointment, but she doesn't. She asks Realma if she has a recommendation from someone, but she doesn't have that either. Amherst asks if perhaps Realma's the president's daughter, or maybe granddaughter, but once again that's a no. Realma reveals that she's just here to beat the crap out of old Mr. President and end his life. Amherst is definitely not letting this crazy broad see him, and she can't believe that Realma thought she would be allowed to just kill the guildmaster. Their argument catches everyone's attention, and they get to witness the fire god lose her temper. She's just going to burn down the whole place and see what crawls out of the ashes. Thankfully, Handsome, the hero wannabe, is also there. He catches Realma off guard and calms things down back to room temperature. He knows exactly who she is and what she's capable of. Handsome believes that a civil conversation in his office might be for the best. In the labyrinth, the fight rages on against the Phoenix, but the team finds themselves frustrated with the bird's ability to fly. Apparently, they've been known to do that sometimes. Roust is so flustered he's even dreaming of what it would be like to abandon his Chad sword and pick up a bow for once. Naru's at least comforted by the fact that as long as the Phoenix stays out of range, it can't hurt them. They might not be able to attack it, but it can't attack them either. Insulted after hearing this, the Phoenix fires off a bolt of flame at the blue-haired bimbo, who dares to invade its space. However, Roust rescues her from the resulting explosion just in time. If it wasn't obvious, he explains that its beak, talons, and burning hot bod aren't the only weapons the Phoenix has at its disposal. Its most dangerous attacks are its balls of fire. No one is more disappointed than Naru because she has no way to punch it to death now. Back at the guild, Ralma has questions for the acting president, and Handsome mentions she isn't the only one recently. He recalls that Roust was here not too long ago with concerns about the labyrinth and the strange behavior of the monsters that are inside. Handsome explains that Roust was being a crybaby, so he told the loser to get lost. Fortunately for the plot of this story, that's not going to work on the fire god. Ralma just wants to know why the town's population is made up of thugs and miscreants. Even the guild hall feels like a Batman villains conference with so many shady types around. Ralma knows it must have been the guild who invited them here in the first place, and now she wants to know why. Also, she wants to know what the deal is with the mysterious and definitely ritual-related pillars all around town. Woman's intuition and common sense both tell her that there's something fishy going on here, and there's no way he doesn't know the truth. Or worse, she suspects that Handsome could be behind all the lies. In a small labyrinth town like Marmot, the guild has absolute authority. That means that the man in charge of the guild is basically the king of the town. King Handsome denies everything and pleads the fifth. He claims he has no idea what's going on or what she's rambling about. He is merely a humble and ignorant guild president, and as he puts it, he's basically a sidekick. Ralma gets annoyed as she has had enough of him playing dumb. She comes right out and accuses him of filling the town with low lives to scare away respectable adventurers. Adventurers with pesky questions who might wonder what's going on in the guild. She speculates that he doesn't want anyone to find out about a transmutation circle hidden around the town. Maybe because soon something big will happen that will require the sacrifice of numerous adventurers, preferably those who won't be missed when they're gone. She compares it to something called the Labyrinth Rampage, a terrible event that occurred in the past and whose memory still haunts the world. Back with the team, the labyrinth has turned into a battlefield as the Phoenix continues to launch fireballs at our heroes from afar. Lyra's concerned that if they aren't blown to smithereens first, the fires will burn off all the oxygen in the cavern before they can stop the monster. As for Roust, he realizes that this Phoenix is pretty clever. Since it's outnumbered, it's trying to drive them off with a rather thoughtful tactic. It's covering the room in a sea of fire to burn them alive, but it's also using the fire to consume all the oxygen in the room. Roust points out that they're up against the Einstein of Phoenixes, and Sieg is offended by the idea of a monster that can actually use its brain. He's tired of hiding and calls out to Armia, asking if she can use water magic. It's definitely something he should have asked before they threw themselves into a fight with the Phoenix, but luckily she can. The plan they come up with is simple. Armia will down the Phoenix with their water magic by attacking its wings. Once grounded, the rest of them will jump it and kick its butt. It takes a long time to cast magic strong enough to harm a Phoenix, and after everything the little mage has been through recently, it's no surprise she's a bit shaken by the idea. Sieg, who always radiates main character energy, reminds her that he'll be there fighting at her side, and nothing will harm her so long as he stands. The fact is, she's got a whole party of trustworthy companions to rely upon. Lyra, Naru, and Roust are all in this together, and as long as they're a team, she's got nothing to worry about. These words inspire Amira, so the team begins the attack. Those on the front line take off, drawing the Phoenix's attention, while Armia and Lyra hang back, preparing the crucial magic they'll need. Calling forth an arrow of water, the little mage launches it at the Phoenix, managing to douse one of its wings. Charging the falling monster, Sieg is intent on driving his saber home, but the cut is too shallow. Back at the guild hall, the verbal duel between Ralma and Handsome continues. Ralma explains that all signs point to a rampage on the horizon, and she doesn't want to hear any denial about the obvious problems surrounding the labyrinth. The mana in these parts is out of control, and monsters are mutating left and right. Back with our heroes, the Phoenix is digivolving before the team's very eyes. It's another amazing monster transformation that changes the Phoenix into a slightly larger Phoenix. Mutations like these are meant to be rare, but Armia finds herself facing off against yet another one right after the last one. The terrible luck is too much for the young girl, and she begins to panic. Lyra can't believe that this kid didn't learn the lesson from the dragon. Fear only feeds the beast. As soon as the Phoenix detects her terror, it pounces, aiming to engulf her in flames. Lyra grabs her and tries to run for cover, but it's too late. The blue fire is upon them, and there's nowhere and no time left to hide. Just when it seems like the girls are about to become those blue flaming hot taquitos, Sieg arrives to save them. The swordsman keeps his promise, Flash stepping into the fire's path, slicing it apart before it can reach Armia. Sieg declares that he won't let the bird lay its wings on her, and he deflects more balls of fire with his blade. Sieg then calls out to the mage, telling her to find the courage to stand. If they are to have any hope of felling this monster, it will be because of her magic. Lyra lends a hand, but the little mage tells the girl that has been by her side this entire anime that she doesn't need her help. If she doesn't have the strength to stand up on her own, then how can she ever be expected to support her teammates? Back with the Flame God, she leaves the guild frustrated and without answers. She decides to take her irritation out on one of the pillars around the town, but the white stone merely absorbs and dissipates her flames. Her attack would have been super useful in this fight against the Phoenix, but for the time being, the team will have to do what they can. And what Naru can do is punch things. She delivers her best jab to the Phoenix, but she's no Tyson, and the monster retreats unharmed. Naru, on the other hand, has caught on fire, and she runs around losing her mind. Looking for revenge, after getting sucker punched in the beak, the Phoenix tries to use its talons on Naru, but Rouse intercepts the attack with his sword. The flames are really strong though, and the very steel is melted. Things aren't looking so good, but Armia has had all the time she needed. With the healer boosting her, Armia summons Ice Arrow, a sweet looking next level spell that is sure to bring the Phoenix down. The attack lands, and the bird's wing is blown apart, but it's not enough to ground it. It is, however, flying much lower now, low enough for Naru to throw herself back into the ring. She leaps up the rubble of a pillar to gain enough altitude so she can bring her foot down hard on the Phoenix's head. It's an attack that catches it completely off guard and slams it hard back to the earth. This is their opportunity, one that Rouse doesn't waste. Driving his blade home, our banished healer delivers the final blow and defeats the Phoenix with one swift stab. In the aftermath, the team can't help but be impressed with their little mage teammate. She really pulled through for them, and their congratulations brings Armia to tears. All she needed was a good group of friends she could call her party. Lyra's just glad that Rouse didn't go into his Dark Super Saiyan mode, but Sieg decides that he will still have to keep his eye on our hero. Afterwards, they return to the tavern in Marmot for a round of celebratory drinks. There they find Ralma waiting for them, where she has been drinking enough for all of them. She's been waiting for the group, and Rouse is surprised that she knew where to find them. Apparently, Elmhurst sold them out without hesitation when Ralma threw a few coins her way. Amherst is clearly a gold digger, which is bad news for Roust because he's going to make bank off the bounty from the Phoenix. Ralma suggests he buy another round of golden elixir, but he offers to get her some food instead so she can sober up. Unlike Naru, who can't get enough of its rustic charm, the food around here isn't exactly up to Ralma's taste. Shayla, the tavern wench in training, overhears her, and she isn't happy about it. The look she gives them makes it clear that their next order will come with some of her special seasoning. Naru actually likes the food, and Ralma isn't surprised, seeing as Naru only knows the rich life back at her family's mansion. The others are shocked to learn that Naru belongs to a famously wealthy family, and no one is more blown away than Roust. Naru's the daughter of Earl and Alestria, and she's the same little girl he rescued all those years ago. Back at the president's lair, he and Handsome are discussing recent events. More mutations, more problems, but most troubling of all is the appearance of the fire god Ralma. The president doesn't seem worried at all, however. In fact, he's happy she's finally arrived. He's going to need his disciples' help dealing with Ralma very soon. Later, Naru's very disappointed with how small Roust's sack is. Their reward this time isn't as good as before, and she expresses her immense dissatisfaction to Amherst, who sits patiently behind the counter. They just took down a whole phoenix, so there's no way this paltry reward is enough. The magic stone they pulled from it alone was bigger than the coin purse they've been given, and she points out that the phoenix even mutated. Amherst is getting a little annoyed at this blue-haired Karen, but Naru isn't done yet. She points out that it was Amherst who told them to come back today to collect their earnings because she needed time to gather it all, and yet she ends up giving them so little. There's no wrath like the wrath of a woman cheated, and Naru's about to have a let me speak to your manager moment. However, Amherst simply smiles and asks her to check the reward. Naru unties the coin purse, and all her doubts and complaints instantly wash away in the light of so much gold. Nothing ends a complaint quite like a sack of gold, and Amherst explains that the amount of silver and copper coins she needed to pay them would be too much for the pair to even carry, so she went out of her way to get them paid in style. Rouse steps in and tells Naru to take the money, much to her embarrassment. He slides Amherst her hefty manager fee, and she snatches it up, but Rouse has already turned and left. She notices his strange mood and asks Naru what's the deal with him, but she doesn't have an answer. The town is bustling with people today, and in the market square, the children gather around to watch a puppet show. As the storyteller sets the mood with some music, he spins them a heroic tale. In the lurking depths of that dark labyrinth, there's an evil dragon whose greed claimed everything for itself. Every 200 years, this insatiable beast would awaken, plundering and burning, and generally doing other evil dragon things. Yet there was one who stood against its tyranny, the mighty hero. The epic battle would decide the fate of the world, and the storyteller asks his captive audience who they think will win. Nearby, Rouse and Naru have sat down to a pleasant meal, but things are off between the two of them. Naru isn't sure what to say, so she brings up the reward. Surely, with so much coin, they could consider renting a house for themselves. Rouse is a little shocked by how sudden this all is, but Naru reminds him that this has been a long time coming. Renting a proper house just makes sense. It's practical and easier than spending their days at a hotel. At least that's what Amherst told her. She's done some research of her own and knows that they can afford not just to rent, but buy something for themselves outright. The idea of a woman handling the finances offends Rouse's manly sensibilities, and he asks Naru if she isn't comfortable at Miss Mary's place. Considering she's standing right there in the background, Naru makes the wise decision to say that there couldn't be a better hotel in town. The food there is fantastic, and the beds are comfy, but that's the problem. Because it's so nice, everyone wants to stay there, which means every day they must deal with the noisy crowds of strangers that come and go. Rouse has to agree, which is enough to raise her hopes and send Naru into a daydream about just the two of them sharing a cozy house in the countryside together. Sitting by the fire, drinking tea, Naru dreams of having a nice long talk with Rouse. She imagines herself talking with him long into the night, and talking multiple times if necessary. The idea of it has her dancing in her seat, but Rouse bursts her bubble when he says it's just too early. He's a winner after all, and only losers develop plot, so they'll just have to keep on living in separate rooms at the hotel. He thinks it's more important for them to save their money, as well as think about some big questions they have to answer, like what about forming a party? The only reason they managed to beat that phoenix in the first place was because of the help they received, and Sieg has already asked them to officially join forces. Naru asks why he can't stop mentioning Sieg, but who can blame him? He's a man among men, strong and charming and handsome, and his sword is huge. Whatever the case, with Sieg, Lyra, and Amira in their party, they'd be able to delve deep into the labyrinth. Naru's clearly frustrated that the labyrinth is the only thing he's trying to delve deep into. At the hotel, the gang gathers around an amazing dinner to celebrate the formation of their new party. By the end of it, poor Amir is tuckered out, and Lyra volunteers to take her back to her room. At this point, Rouse must have noticed that the two are always whispering around him, when Lyra quietly tells Sieg that this is his chance to get to know their mysterious healer friend a little better. As the girls go to leave, Naru follows after them. She has some things to discuss with Lyra, girl to girl. Up in Amira's room, the young mage is fast asleep, but the other two are far from it. Lyra's shocked by how desperate Naru is for Rouse's attention, but the blue-haired fighter tells her to shut up. The whole hotel doesn't need to know her business. However, she does need Lyra's advice. Rouse rejected her offer to live together, and now she doesn't know what to do or how to feel. Lyra comforts her by saying Roust absolutely adores her, and the reason he said no could be anything. He might be shy or slow to change, or just downright stupid, and she says that men are like that sometimes. Naru's glad she went to Lyra for advice because she's exactly the kind of cougar she needed to help her with their problem. She's been prowling around men so long, there's nothing she doesn't know about them. Lyra says she can relate because she's been thirsting for someone for a long time now as well. Downstairs, Roust and Sieg are discussing the same thing over a mug of wine. The healer doesn't know if buying a house is the right idea, and Sieg brings up how Naru must have felt asking him and being turned down like that. He wonders if Roust hates her, but there's no way anyone cannot like the best girl, Naru. When they first met, she was the one who gave him the courage he needed to be the adventurer he is today. And then she was the only one who dared to form a party with Roust after his old team threw him away like trash. Sieg then just comes out and asks if Roust likes Naru. Our boy turns red with embarrassment and he can't manage to get a word out, which is enough of an answer for Sieg. Sieg is the very topic of their conversation upstairs as the girls talk about the time Lyra and he first met. She talks about her past in the royal capital and how the two of them were part of the same party at first. She humble brags about being the prettiest and how that often led to trouble with the men who joined the party just to get close to her. Someone mentions that even Margulis from her old team wanted to jump her bones too, and the girls realize that Amira is awake. After hearing all this juicy romance gossip, there's no way the mage could sleep. The girls are both eager for Lyra to continue with her story, and she recounts a time when Sieg and the others had left, and one of her more disgraceful teammates tried to take things too far. Naturally, she took care of it herself, but when Sieg returned, he was different. He took his frustration out on the fool, but then up and left the party too. Sieg himself explains why he had to disappear like that. Lyra may have forgiven him for letting someone like that into their team, but he never forgave himself. He had no idea what he was supposed to do, so he ended up falling back on the one thing he understood. He took a job to investigate a small town with some monster troubles, and here he was. He never expected to run into Lyra again so soon. A voice asks if Lyra really does like Sieg, and the girls realize that the little gremlin Sheila has broken into the room to deliver the food they ordered. Back with the boys, Sieg asks Roust what he plans to do. The healer explains that before he can make any decisions, he needs to see the Carfax on this girl. This is when Amherst comes in as she orders herself a beer and drops the report Roust ordered. Apparently, snooping is a little side gig Amherst runs, and he hired her to do some digging into Naru's past. We then return to the puppet show for the shocking climax of the tale. The hero has fallen, and it seems like the evil dragon has all but won. That is until the Sleeping Beauty appears, wielding the only power that could subdue the dragon and return the beast to its slumber. Amherst then goes over what they already knew about Naru. She's a rich girl from a rich family that was bound to inherit everything, until one day she declared that she was going to be a broke adventurer instead. It's not unheard of for nobility to become adventurers, but it's still weird that her father would allow such a thing. It turned out that he didn't, not at first. Naru explains to her girls that her hair isn't some cheap dye job. She used to be blonde until waking up one day to find that her hair had changed color without any kind of explanation. It's the reason that Roust couldn't recognize her. Amherst continues saying that the day Naru's hair changed color was the day her father changed his mind about her becoming an adventurer. Naru's clueless and can't understand the change of heart. Luckily, Sieg is there to put it plainly. He says that Naru won't live much longer. Her blue hair must represent the short time she has left, so her father must have wanted her to live her best life before the end. Amherst can't be sure though, because Naru's the kind of girl who punches phoenixes for a living, so she doesn't exactly look like someone who's about to keel over. Roust's plan now is to have her return home at least one more time. If Naru still wants to be an adventurer after that, he'll keep supporting her like he's always done. For her part, Naru has done a lot to get to this point, and she did it all for a boy she liked. The other girls are kind of creepy stalkers as well, so they're impressed at how proactive she is. Even Lyra is a little jealous, which sparks an idea in the others. Dragged downstairs by the other girls, Lyra's forced to ask Sieg if he has a moment to talk. Alone on the patio, she asks him to be her partner, but Sieg says that they're already on the same team. Lyra has to explain things plainly to the doofus, who finally gets it in the end. His only answer to her request is that he'll have to think about it. It's not the answer she was hoping for, but just thinking about a relationship is progress, and she's happy enough with that. Overhearing all this, Rouse finds the courage to ask Naru to come speak with them later. Back at the puppet show, we see the dramatic conclusion to the story of the hero, the dragon, and the Sleeping Beauty who saves the world. To stop the evil monster, the Sleeping Beauty must sacrifice herself. As the show comes to an end, we see that the puppet has some very familiar blue hair. In the depths of the dungeon, a hulking half-orc patrols the dark hallways in search of prey. Unbeknownst to the orc, a group of adventurers watches from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to make their move. Once it has passed, the group tries to sneak away, only to run into a second monster blocking their path. The adventurers begin to panic, worried about getting caught in between the two beasts. The leader of the group tells the others not to lose their cool because he has a plan. He calls over the youngest member of their team, a boy called Keith, and says that it's his chance to shine. Everyone knows that half-orcs can't resist weak people, so the others chuck Keith out into the open to serve as the perfect distraction while they bravely run away. In Marmot's hotel, Naru is strangely observing a sausage while thinking about Roust. Lyra and Sieg notice how preoccupied their martial artist friend is and get on Roust's case for causing this. Ever since he mentioned that he needed to talk to her about something very important, the girl has been super distracted. They tell our hero that he needs to get on with it already and just say what he has to say. In the end, Roust ends up agreeing. He tells Naru that it's time to have their conversation, but the plot has different plans as Keith comes crashing through the front door. Shayla and the others rush to the poor boy's side, horrified by how battered and bruised he is. Lyra and Shayla then take Keith to a room to help heal him back to health. Naru asks how Shayla knows him, and Miss Mary explains that the two of them are quite good friends. They have been ever since Mary learned Keith was an orphan, and she started inviting him over for meals. Like most children made orphans by the labyrinth, Keith wanted to become an adventurer and was quite excited recently to have joined the party. Rouse has heard this story before and apologizes to Naru because they're going to have to put a hold on their talk for now. Later that day at the Adventurers Guild, Marnell and his party have managed to catch Keith's former teammates. He tells Rouse that the bounty he placed on their heads worked and the criminals have confessed to the crime. The look Rouse gives the three treacherous adventurers sends a shiver down their spines, and Marnell asks what he wants to do with them. Rouse says there's no need for further violence, he just wants them out of this town for good. Marnell cuts them free, but with a warning. If they ever show their faces in Marmouth again, they'll get much worse than a bump on their heads. As they flee off into the sunset, Amherst appears and tries to scold Rouse and Marnell for their vigilante justice. Marnell rightfully points out that they wouldn't need to dish out their own law and order if the guild would just do its job and regulate the adventurers like it's supposed to. Amherst finds that hard to argue with and says that it's just how things are. She can only follow the orders of the higher-ups. As if on cue, Handsome steps out and confronts the group. He lays into the adventurers for doing whatever they like and not reporting their grievances to the guild. He even goes so far as to say that they're the ones who deserve to be banished for their actions. His words rile up the adventurers he's talking down to, and they start yelling and cursing at him. They even threaten to kick his butt if he has the nerve to say it again. Rouse calms the group down and says that he'll talk to Handsome personally and get this all sorted out. In Handsome's office, Rouse explains what has happened to Keith. He tries to explain that a labyrinth town and its orphans are inseparable. One has to take care of the other, something they do in every guild town, except this one for some reason. Handsome counters by wondering if any other town has managed to solve their orphan problem. When Rouse doesn't have a good answer, Handsome goes on to say that Marmouth isn't a well-off settlement. They don't have the resources or manpower to waste on untested and inefficient solutions like other towns do. His answer sounds like utter nonsense to Rouse, who's getting heated at Handsome's complete disregard. As usual, the head of the guild's response is that if they or anyone else doesn't like how things are done in Marmouth, they are free to get the heck out of there. No one is being forced to go into the labyrinth or become adventurers in the first place. The frustrated Rouse demands to know if there's some other way to solve this besides running away, and Handsome mentions redemption. He then recounts something once said to him long ago, and that is that adventurers always live in danger. The incompetent deserve to die. This is how it is, and how it has always been. The word sounds strangely familiar to Roust, but he can't place where it's from. He gets his answer when Handsome reveals the scar on his arm and asks Roust if he even remembers him. Roust is stunned to realize that Handsome is actually the same boy named Noxum he knew long ago. Flashing back to the past, we join a young Handsome on the trail with a group of adventurers. He's weighed down by tons of bags and equipment as the others use him like a pack mule. One of the heartless adventurers tosses one more pack onto him, and the weight knocks him over. Their leader mocks Noxum for being incompetent and warns the boy that if he can't even manage to carry their stuff, he's not going to get paid at all. As they laugh and leave him in the dirt, a young Roust walks up and gives Noxum a hand with his burden. He asks if the boy is alright and offers to help, but Noxum's too proud to accept it and he storms off. By the time the sun has set, the group has settled down around the campfire. That is, except for Noxum and Roust, who have to sit alone in the cold and the dark while they keep watch. Noxum mutters to himself that he won't end up a loser like Roust and vows to become a great adventurer one day. Soon the group calls it a night and goes to bed. Later that night, Noxum is awoken and he cries out that he didn't fall asleep on watch. Luckily for him, it was only Roust waking him up. The young healer hushes Noxum and says that he needs to warn the others because there are goblins coming. Once everyone is up on their feet, they interrogate Roust about the goblins, demanding to know how many there are. Unfortunately, he explains that their number is too great to count. Overlooking the horde of monsters, the leader of the group recognizes that they have no chance of winning if they engage, but he tells the others not to worry because he has a plan. Everyone knows goblins can't resist weak people, so they toss Roust and Noxum down the cliff to serve as the perfect distraction while they bravely run away. Noxum can't believe what's happening and starts yelling back up the cliff, but Roust tells him that there's no one there. This was simply how it was always going to be. The adventurers only ever hired them to carry their junk and use them as bait. Roust tells him he's going to get out of this alive and get some payback, and if Noxum has strength to be angry, he has enough strength to get himself out of this mess. The pair draw their weapons, introducing themselves as they prepare for the fight of their lives. The boys manage to escape and hide in the trunk of an old tree. However, they're completely surrounded by goblins with no means of escape. Roust asks if Noxum's injury is bad, but he waves him off and says it's just a scratch. Feeling angry and defeated, Noxum says that at least they won't die incompetent. This is because they managed to serve as a great distraction for those bastards in the end. Roust, on the other hand, isn't so sure that their evil teammates managed to get away. He explains that when goblins hunt in large packs like this, they prefer taking on big groups instead of wasting their time with stragglers. His words end up being prophetic, as the screams of the adventurers can be heard in the distance, drawing the goblins away. Noxum laughs as he listens to the people who betrayed him get their just desserts. Roust actually says that he'd like to help if he can, and Noxum can't believe what he's hearing. Regardless, they can't actually do anything now, so the two decide to leave while they can. Noxum's injury stops him in his tracks, however, and Roust runs over to heal him. Noxum tells him not to be a fool. Roust has to run before the goblins return, but the healer isn't having any of it. This is when we hear those familiar words spoken by Handsome. He said that the incompetent deserve to die and the weak have no right to live. Roust snaps and says that the world doesn't work like that. It doesn't matter if they're weak, there's always the chance that one day they can redeem themselves. Noxum asks how he could possibly know that, and Roust tells him that it's because he was once redeemed himself. Back in the present, Noxum, now known as Handsome, says that his words were true back then. The world is harsh to the incompetent, but it wasn't he and Roust who were incompetent. It was their treacherous teammates who didn't understand the nature of the goblins. The two of them survived because those adventurers were weak. He goes on to explain that after they went their separate ways, he was eventually taken in by Mist, the president of the guild branch for this town. Roust congratulates his old companion on managing to do so well for himself, but Handsome isn't bringing up the past just to talk about the good old days. He mentions all this so he can return the favor Roust once showed him. He tells the healer to leave because it's the best thing he can do for himself. He should also take that girl Naru with him, since she was the one that Rouse must have been talking about when he mentioned being redeemed. With their negotiations going nowhere, Rouse returns to Marnell and the others and apologizes. He says that he has accomplished nothing, but Amherst calls the two of them over for a quick chat in the storage room. Squeezed into the cramped but private space, she whispers that they aren't the only ones upset with the way the guild is handling things. We then cut to the future when Rouse explains what Amherst told him. She suggested the clearing of the monsters that have infested the nearby lands around the town. Naru asks why the guild hasn't issued bounties for these monsters, but as Amherst puts it, Handsome and Mist just don't seem to care. She said she would cover for them while they deal with the monsters on their own. She will also do her best to make sure that the right people hear about what's going on in this town without getting caught. They just have to deal with the monster threat in the meantime. Having heard all this, Naru complains that they always have to work extra hard. Rouse tells her not to worry because Amherst has promised to buy the magic stones they loot at a higher price by paying with their own money. Rouse and Marnell were shocked to hear the greedy Amherst say that, but she quieted them down with a knock on the head. The promise of more money perks Naru right up, and she's rearing to go. Leaving the hotel, they find Keith and a number of other kids training with Sieg and Lyra. The young boy seems to be completely healed, and though Lyra would like to take all the credit, she admits that Keith is one tough kid. Sieg calls an end to the sword training and declares that now is the time to practice the sacred art of punching things, and no one is a better teacher than Naru. Lyra asks if Rouse has finally had that talk with Naru yet, but the healer bashfully admits that he completely forgot. Thankfully, it at least seems that Naru's back to her old self again. Meanwhile, Handsome reports to Mr. Mist, handing him a letter from the capital. The letter's from the Prime Minister himself, and it instructs them to keep an eye on Naru, just like all the other letters have before it. Handsome has to ask, is Naru really the Sleeping Beauty who will save them all from the evil dragon, as described in all the fairy tales? Mist informs him that those aren't just children's stories. The tale of the blue-haired girl sacrificing herself to stop the dragon is actually real. Naru is the chosen one, fabled to save them all. From Sieg's vantage point, he spots them, a pack of goblins on the prowl. It's just as Amherst told them, there are monsters appearing all over this area, and these ones look like they're heading straight for the town. Lyra suggests they ambush them, while Armia thinks she can do some damage from range with her magic. In the end, Rouse decides that it's better to attack from head on. For the sake of Marmot, he doesn't want to risk a single one escaping. The team takes a long way around to catch the goblins off guard, but as they're traveling, Naru and Rouse notice something familiar on the grassy plain. It's the same place the two of them first met all those years ago. The only thing Naru remembers is that all she could do was cry, while Rouse struggled alone and unwanted. Now working together, the two of them have finally realized the promise they made to one day fight side by side as partners. The battle is hard fought, but in the end the adventurers are victorious, cleaning up the goblins and collecting a hefty bag of loot. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning of their troubles. Without warning, the ground begins to shake beneath their feet. Though it's slight at first, Rouse warns the others that it will only get worse. His prediction comes true, as it feels like the whole world starts to quake and shudder violently. In town, Miss Mary and Sheila are holding on for dear life as the walls rattle and dishes fall. All across Marmot, the people feel it, and at the center of it all is a mysterious Mr. Mist who knows the day he has been waiting for has finally arrived. Rouse comes running into the inn to check up on everyone and is relieved to see that no one has been seriously hurt. He doesn't have long to sit on his heels, however, as another adventurer, one of Marnell's party, comes running up in a panic. He tells them that Marnell needs their help in the town square right away, and Naru gets a look on her face like she just realized that she's not going to get a chance to pee before they leave. Arriving on the scene, a worried Marnell directs their attention to the trouble at hand. More goblins, and it looks like some of them have been juicing. Them being so close to town is a real problem, and Marnell plans to stop them here and now before they can cause any harm. He warns Roust and the others that since these monsters don't officially have a bounty on their heads yet, the payout for defeating them might not be worth the effort. Roust waves away his concern, and all the others agree. Regardless of the prize, protecting the town they've come to call home is more important than anything else right now. The adventurers charge together, headlong into the goblins. Naru's kung fu, Armia's magic, and Sieg's blade make quick work of the first wave. All is looking promising until Rouse cleaves the arm off of one of the jacked up hobgoblins. To their horror, it begins to speak. It curses Roust, telling our hero that he will die for what he has done, and all the other monsters start talking in the human language. They begin to chant the word kill over and over again. It's a haunting scene that none of the adventurers have ever seen before, and no one has even heard of monsters talking like this. Rouse decides it doesn't matter if they can speak or not, they still need to be stopped. He rallies his allies, and together they go all out, defeating the last of the Gobos. The big one that first spoke is the last to fall, and his words are a grim warning. Before he dies, the monster tells Roust and the others that in the end all of humanity will be wiped out, and not a single one of them will survive what's to come. As the monster dies, it leaves behind a mutated crystal, but even a mutation could not be enough to explain how it was able to speak like that. Bad news seems to come running out of the woodwork to find Roust as a new messenger approaches. More monsters have appeared in staggering numbers, but this time at the labyrinth entrance. Against so many, there's little the team can do on their own, so Roust orders a retreat. They'll return to Marmot and get some help from the other useless adventurers for once. Returning to town, they find the army of reinforcements they were hoping for already assembled. Unfortunately, it's for all the wrong reasons. A horde of adventurers have formed a line stretching around the block outside the guild hall, all of them clamoring to get inside. As usual, it seems Handsome has been up to something. Amherst manages to find the heroes in all the chaos and explains that the guild has been suspiciously placing huge bounties on the monsters sighted around town lately. This has caused every no-good thug with a sword and a quest log to go on the hunt. Normally this wouldn't be a problem considering the threat the town is in, but the bounties are of such ludicrous amounts, it has turned the whole adventurer scene into a feeding frenzy. Seek suspects that Handsome has done this on purpose for some reason. Rouse notes that to have so much money on hand must mean that Handsome and the guild knew this was going to happen beforehand. Ralma appears as she had the same thought. The gang is shocked to see that the fiery redhead is even still on the show, and Rouse asks if this is what he thinks it is, a monster rampage. The team heads to the local library for some light reading, pulling out the great big book of exposition that explains what the heck is going on. According to some history, a rampage is something like Comic-Con, a phenomenon where hordes of monsters surge out of the darkness to overwhelm the human world. This invasion of the surface can last for days, bringing ruin and death to everything even remotely close to the labyrinth. It only occurs when the mana of the labyrinth swells to levels that can no longer be contained. The only way for it to be stopped is by wiping out all the monsters. It isn't until the labyrinth has exhausted itself from making new monsters that the rampage will finally come to an end. Amherst is surprised to realize that the Adventurers Guild were originally created to exhaust the labyrinth's mana and stop such a thing from happening in the first place. Lyra points out that it's a little weird she didn't know that already, considering it's her job. Amherst says she just works there and she can't be bothered to do things like read or know stuff. Regardless, none of them have ever heard of a rampage occurring before, and Relma points out that that's because the last time it happened was over 100 years ago. Like Blockbuster, or internet dial-up, or the idea of her wearing a shirt, it's just been so long since it was relevant that nobody even thinks about it anymore. Unfortunately, none of this is adding up. Their town is the biggest one in the area, and by far has the most adventurers. Adventurers who rack up monster kills day in and day out, like it's going out of style. With all that going on, how can the labyrinth still have so much mana to spare? Whatever the case, the group knows that they need to get ready. Rouse decides to do a little light looting around town, but for a good cause. He has his allies gathering furniture from all the houses to build barricades and choke points. Naru doesn't quite understand why, so Rouse tells her that if this rampage is really going to last for days, then they'd better do everything they can to be prepared to defend Marmot. The noise of a kerfuffle draws their attention to Marnell arguing with Keith and some other kids who have come to help fight. Marnell tells them that they aren't going anywhere near the monsters, but instead they can help protect their home in different ways, like making sure civilians get to safety and gathering supplies. It seems to work, and the kids decide to leave it be. Rouse knows what it's like to be young, dumb, and full of conviction like that, just like Marnell. He says that at least this way they won't get hurt, and they can still be kids for a little while longer. The rampage rages on as even more gobos pour into town. This time, however, the adventurers are ready for them, gathering in droves to claim that sweet reward money for each one they kill. Roust and Ralma watch on from a distance, and his master tells him to wipe that look off his face. She knows that the wannabe healer is blaming himself for not doing more. However, just like everyone else here, they're doing their best against a type of threat they've never faced before. The best he can do is give it his all and stop thinking about what he could have done. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of some high-level monsters known as the Golden Girls. Like the others, it seems that they too have been mutated and can now speak. However, Ralma's hot temper snaps everyone out of their stupor. With a few fireballs and a little help from the others, the adventurers manage to wipe out the monsters, but this fight is far from over. There's even more on the way, and when Naru asks Ralma to use her spicy magic on them next, the fire god admits that she might have overdone it a little and needs a rest before she can go again. It's up to Roust and Sieg to deal with the menace, so while Lyra's busy healing people, they rush in with their weapons. The two cut their way through the horde of goblins, but a misstep by Sieg sees him losing his balance in the middle of the battle. He's almost overrun by the swarms of goblins, but the arrival of a new face turns the tide of the battle in an instant. It's Mr. Ronaldo, the legendary swordsman, and apparently everyone seems to know him. He's the one who gave Sieg his special sword and trained Roust. He even taught Naru a thing or two about the blade before she decided that punching things was way cooler and she gave it up. Even Ralma knows this Trigun looking dude as she comes running up in a huff, scolding her old adventuring partner for showing up so late. Ronaldo warmly greets the old Fire Grinch, but she reminds him that her name is Fire God and tries to melt the poor guy for the slip up. As he's already proven, however, he's no pushover. He manages to deflect her flame with his magical sword like it was nothing. Then he gets to work dealing with the rest of the monsters. Before the others can join him, a strange light appears and Handsome comes strolling out like it was any other Saturday. He asks Ralma to come with him. His master Miss wants to speak with her. Ralma, for some reason, doesn't seem too surprised to see him. She asks if that magic he just used to teleport here is the same kind of magic rumored to have been lost centuries ago. Naturally, Handsome doesn't give her a straight answer, but it doesn't matter. No Karen can resist the opportunity to speak to the manager. Roust interjects because he wants to go too and give this Mist guy a piece of his mind. Handsome agrees and even says that Naru should come as well. As the four make their way through a long hallway, Naru wonders why Mist would want to see her. Roust comforts her by saying that if the old geezer tries anything, he'll teach him a lesson. Ralma warns him that that wouldn't be a good idea. Even if she went all out with every ounce of her power, she isn't sure she could take Mist. Starting something with the guild president would be a death sentence for sure. Handsome leads them to a large door and reveals Mist waiting inside. The old man tells Ralma that it's been a long time, and the redhead agrees before saying hello with the fireball. Mist doesn't seem fazed at all by the attack, but the light of Ralma's fire reveals his face. It turns out that Mist is an elf, and as Ralma explains, probably the last of his kind. The old elf asks if this is any way for a student to greet their master, and both Roust and Naru are shocked to realize that Mist is their master's master. Mist is a 600-year-old master of the magical arts, and an all-around creepy old man, as Ralma puts it. Mist's creepy old gaze fixes on Naru for some reason, and she gets the big ick from the elf. Ralma demands to know why she was asked to come here after being ignored by her miserable old master for so long. Mist is hurt to be badmouthed by his old disciple. He fires back by saying that Ralma's the old and busted, while Handsome is the new hotness and a far better disciple than she ever was, even if he has no aptitude for magic. The redhead decides that she doesn't want to get involved in their bromance, and Mist tells him to have a seat. He's got a lot of plot to explain, and it's going to take a while. Ralma has pieced it all together. Mist is the reason the guild has been manipulating events in the town, encouraging thuggery, and attracting as many bad apple adventurers as possible to help fight off the labyrinth rampage he knew was going to happen. In hindsight, it was obvious that this day was coming. As Roust explains, the signs were everywhere. Countless powerful monsters running crazy on the upper levels, and more mutations than you can shake a stick at. Yet what he really wants to know is why the guild never warned anyone. Handsome says that it would have been useless. They knew that the rampage was imminent, just not exactly when. It could have happened a week from now or a year, so pointlessly declaring a state of emergency would have served no one and only started a panic. Ralma knows they're hiding something because there's a reason they kept their mouth shut about this, and she wants answers. She accuses Mist of being behind the rampage, but the old elf says that if he could control the labyrinth like that, he wouldn't be here talking to her ratchety self. It is actually those he answers to that demanded this secret be kept. Mist explains that he's just middle management. He has bosses in the capital, but even they have a boss, someone even higher up, who's in charge of every adventurers guild in the nation. Handsome is a little alarmed to hear his master spilling the tea like this, but Mist says that now that the rampage has begun, there's no need to keep things a secret anymore. It turns out that the elf has been making preparations for a long time. Those white pillars around town that no one ever thought to question are his last resort. Before he explains, however, he asks Ralma to make a deal with him. He needs her help, and as the strongest source of magic around, she's going to make sure that they get to the heart of the labyrinth to slay its master once and for all. With the labyrinth master gone, the rampage ends. Rouse can't believe what he's hearing, but Ralma doesn't hesitate. She's in. Meanwhile, the battle for the town continues. Ronaldo is scoring goals and earning the adoration of fans like Lyra, while poor Sieg is struggling against just one pig with a stick. Things are already at their breaking point, yet the arrival of the powerful half-orcs spell even greater trouble for Marmot. Seeing the kids hiding behind the barrier and knowing his blade is all that stands between them and danger, Sieg asks his master to join him for one more charge into the fray. With their powwow over, Handsome leads our heroes to a secret location in town and reminds them to follow the plan. Ralma searches around for a hidden entrance and unlocks a new door. As the stone parts and a light erupts from within, she turns to her disciple and warns him that no matter what happens, not to be fooled by Mist. With that, she walks inside the light and with her final words tells Rouse goodbye. A beam of white light erupts into the sky, spreading out across the whole town, with each of the pillars acting like an anchor for the force field that now surrounds all of Marmot. We see it in action as an adventurer runs for his life from a horde of monsters hot on his trail. He barely makes it inside the field before they catch him, yet as he passes through unharmed, they are repelled like women from a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Pounding on the barrier, the monsters scream in frustration. They aren't the only one on a rampage, as Sieg cuts his way through the horde still inside the town. Ronaldo warns him that he's overdoing it and needs to rest. Now that they have the help of the other adventurers and the strange force field protecting them, things are looking a lot less dire. Rouse and Naro reunite with the gang and quickly go over what they learned and what happened to Ralma. She has become the power source for the wall, keeping the monsters at bay. Normally, someone as powerful as Ralma can do a great deal with her magic, but a wall of this size and power demands a great deal from the one casting it. With enough time, the price could very well end up being her life. Bad news likes company, as a terrible screech from the skies heralds the arrival of the Griffin, a truly powerful monster whose immediate attack on the wall begins to put a strain on the force field and the one powering it. Rouse decides that he has to act immediately or Ralma's life is in danger. Before he can run off, however, Ronaldo stops him. He tells the healer that he's far too stubborn and reckless. There's no way he's going to solve this problem by charging in without a plan, and he definitely won't have a chance without his friends backing him up. Naru and the others agree they're coming too. Together they can save Marmot and Ralma. The team charges out of town and into the horde of monsters. A hobgoblin tries to get in their way, but like a Walmart employee at the opening of a Black Friday sale, they run right over him. Ronaldo realizes they don't have time to deal with the small fries, they need to stop that Griffin no matter what. Clearing the battlefield as quickly as they can, our heroes notice something strange going on with the monsters. For some reason, they've stopped their attack. Each of them has a bad feeling about this, and their hunch is proven right as a new threat races into the fight. It's a Fenrir, a monster known for its incredible speed and ferocity. As if the Griffin weren't enough, now there's another top-tier threat on the field. Even a professional like Sieg is starting to get nervous, or as he puts it, he's trembling with excitement. Fortunately, Ronaldo has a plan. He'll deal with the Griffin, while Rouse and the team take on the Fenrir. Armia opens up the assault on the wolf with her magic, but is shocked by its astonishing speed. Thankfully, Rouse is there to hold it back, but even he can't keep up. As the two of them trade blows, soon enough the healer begins to falter, and Fenrir claws draw first blood. Sieg steps in to distract the wolf, while Naru and Lyra rescue Roust. He's going to need some good old healing before he can get back in the fight. Meanwhile, Ronaldo has a date with the Griffin. He jumps straight to third base when he tackles the monster out of the sky and brings it back down to earth. The master swordsman has one hell of a fight on his hands, and he's not the only one. Army and Sieg do their best to hold back the wolf, but with the howl, it summons a lich to even the numbers. The little mage is caught completely off guard by the undead, leaving Sieg at the wolf's mercy. Naru rushes over to help, but in doing so, she leaves Lyra and Roust defenseless. Fenrir is a cunning foe and wastes no time capitalizing on the opening. In the blink of an eye, the monster charges Lyra, knocking her away. Naru is too slow to help, and to her horror, she watches as Fenrir picks up a wounded Roust in its jaws and tosses his limp body aside like a rag doll. The sight of her big brother injured and in danger sends her into a rage. She charges at the wolf with a battle cry, swinging wildly and with all her strength. The others try to back her up, but with so many of them hurt, there's little they can do but watch. Naru is brimming with fury and vows that she'll make the Fenrir pay. She attacks with a powerful kick that sends the monster flying, but as it emerges from the dust, she realizes it's not enough. Fenrir strikes back, its speed and claws too much to handle. Try as she might, Naru cannot fend the monster off, and like Roust, she too is defeated. Fenrir stands victoriously over her, one paw on her back, as it prepares to deliver the final blow. However, a smile on Naru's face stops the wolf in its tracks. Fenrir looks around for the threat it can sense closing in, but it notices too late, as Roust comes flying in. Naru reveals to the beast that she was just bait. Roust drives his blade deep into Fenrir's side, defeating the monster with one clean strike. As Naru watches Fenrir fall, she passes out. When next she awakens, the sun is setting on Marmot, and she's back in town. Her friends stand over her, and she's surprised to be alive. Ronaldo is there as well, and she asks what happened to the Griffin. Ronaldo explains that he took care of it off screen, so the animation budget wouldn't have to struggle. For now, it seems that things have quieted down. The town isn't under attack anymore, and Realma should be safe for the time being. They finally have a chance to prepare for their attack on the labyrinth and the inevitable fight with its master. Looking at everyone so banged up and exhausted, Naru laughs at the state of them all and says that she's lucky to be alive. Handsome agrees as he appears behind her without warning. He wraps his arm around her throat and takes Naru prisoner. Before anyone has a chance to react, one of those magical doors opens up behind him, and he and Naru disappear into the light. Naru cries out for her brother to help, but Roust is too late. Naru is gone. Thanks for watching my recap. Subscribe to the channel for more videos.